Welcome to General Service Public Works Committee meeting. This is October 12th, 2020 at noon, and I officially call this meeting to order. We have in front of us 7 agenda items, which includes 2 presentations. So our first item is acceptance of bid for Coeur d'Alene 3rd Street Boat Launch Project. And Bill Greenwood is here with us today.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pinch hitting for Monty. So our launch docks, we went out for bids. You guys allowed us to do that. The launch docks themselves were old and wooden and dilapidated, really torn up. They were sinking. The pilings were bad. So we received 1 bid from Harrison Dock. And the amount of the grant that we received was $124,000. Our mass is going to be just shy of $30,000 coming out of Parks Capital Improvement. So we've got some waterways money set aside. We've got plenty there to cover that. I just want to show you a couple of pictures about the condition. This ramp we installed about 15 years ago. And it hasn't changed at all. This one was wooden before. It now is a composite decking, steel frame, and polyfloat tubes. And it looks about as good as it did the day that we put it in. The current condition of these other ramps look like this. And the reason they're listing is because the float logs on this side are saturated and they're sinking. So, and this is the new configuration of the docks. Will look like the ones in the first picture of these. They'll look like that here. And we're just looking for your approval to go ahead and work with Harrison Dock.
Great.
Madam Chair, we actually just saw this presentation, very well done, and we gave our approval to move forward seeking the bid. So I don't honestly have any further questions about this. It looks like you've done a good job on it. We need the docks, so I would make a motion to approve the offered bid. I'll find the exact language here in a second.
Second.
Okay.
Any further discussion? I just
can-
had one quick question. The
Yes.
timeline for this.
I've given them 120 days, so the point when we pull the trigger on it, it'll be done at the end of the summer. If we get some snow that gets in their way, I don't have a problem working with the contractor. They're a firm we work with a bunch, and so I trust them. We'll get it done hopefully by the end of this year. If they run into some hiccups, it may be its completion of some work in the spring, but it'll be ready for next season's boating season.
Fantastic, thank you. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes. And there has been a request by Councilman Gookin that this be added to the full agenda. Item number 2 is approval of agreement with Simcoe Development Group for construction of a new water transmission main on Lakeview Heights. And we have Kyle Marine here.
Thank you, Council. I'm here to approve or seek requesting for approve the project from Simcoe Development for $100,240 for the installation of a new transmission main up a rather steep hillside over on Blackwell Island. It's a rather unique project, mainly because it's outside of the city limits. We got approval from council a while ago to do a trade for an easement over there to relocate our transmission line that is failing over there currently. So what we're looking to do is run a new 12-inch water transmission line up the hill and tie into Lakeview Heights. It's between lots A and B on a new development over there that a contractor put in. As we move forward, we solicited out for bids, which we got, or we solicited out to 7 different contractors. We got 2 contractors that came back with quotes for us. We went out and asked why other contractors didn't give us the total 7 bids that we were requesting. It's due to a difficult project because of the steep of the slope and the location that's at, and also the contractors are extremely busy right now. We felt the cost was actually fairly reasonable. Our estimates that came back were below what we requested. One unusual request that I am asking on this is on both quotes we asked about what would happen if we ran into rock up there. The cost goes through the roof. So the other quote came back actually $160,000, not including the rocks. So Simcoe came in with a request at a dollar amount. If we ran into rock, we calculate out it'll be at 40%. If we run into rock, it could be up to 40% more. So I'm requesting a 40% contingency in case we run into unforeseen materials like rock in the hillside. We don't think we will, but we'd like to have that in place just in case we have issues as we put this water main in. So as this water main goes in, this is part of a larger project over for Blackwell. Currently, we do not meet fire flows over there for fire protection. So it's a safety issue, and we have to serve all our customers, whether they're in the city limits or outside the city limits, to the best of our ability. So as this moves forward, this has been identified in our comp plan to upgrade areas over there. It would be to install a new booster station, a new transmission line, and ultimately a new tank site up there, or a tank in general, because we do not have a tank over there currently. So this is the first phase of multi-phase project. The goal is to get the transmission line in this year, go into a design at the end of this year, and that'll come to council later. Go into design later this year for a new booster station. We have a lot over there specified for the booster station. And then we'd go into building possibly next year or the year after for the booster station, and then we're looking to put a tank over there in the future. And at that, any questions you may have?
Any questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair. Kyle, I think you sort of answered some of it.
Sure.
Because I'm fairly new to this. So the mandate is that for safety reasons, the city has the burden to make this happen, regardless whether they're in the city or not.
Correct. As the water department is required to serve water to our customers, we have a certain standard that we have to meet by state law. We have to meet quality water, adequate flows, adequate pressures for home use and for fire protection. Currently, we cannot meet fire protection. We haven't been able to meet fire protection over there since the city inherited that system. So we're looking to upgrade it. We just have to set funds aside, and we have to move into it in phases. It'd be a couple of $1 million project, do everything at once. So we're looking to do it in phases and get things moved in properly and make sure we do it right.
So this isn't something that we normally ask developers to fund.
We would normally ask a developer to fund it if it's a new development of property, which is not. This is existing. So if a developer annexed in the city and built a whole bunch of lots over there, yes, we'd say we need a tank, we need a booster, we need anything that's above and beyond what we already have to serve your customers that you're going to turn over to the city. So they would be required to build that for us, or at least assist in building that for us to serve those customers if they want us to serve them.
Okay.
This is because we're already serving existing customers, but not to the full standard that we should be.
Okay, thank you. That's very clarifying.
Well, I guess kind of a logical follow-up to that, and I get why, if we were serving them outside the city because we had to, but they are right next door. We've already gone a little bit over the river, which at one point that was kind of the solid line, but so the logical thing is, well, at what point would you expect that we would just annex that in so we're not just dealing piecemeal with, we're going to add a little bit here and there, but just make sure the whole thing gets up to standard.
Right, so with the water line that's there, I can't speak on the annexation by any means. I'm required to serve them because they're already our customers. I can't exactly just get rid of them or tell them that we won't serve them. For the line, transmission line that's there, it's already replaced an existing line. So actually all we're doing with this project is just replace an existing water line. We're just updating it. The old water main is 8-inch steel main. We've had several leaks on it. It's in a narrow area up another utility easement that's to the point where we can't get in there and work on it because there's so many other utilities in there and the steepness of the hillside, it makes it difficult. But for the annexation, that's something you're going to have to talk to the legal department about.
And did you say this was going to go to council?
There has been a request that this be added to the council.
Okay, so there'll be other times for that kind of question. Okay, I'm good.
And Kyle, I just had one question, but you answered it, and it was more detail behind the 40% contingency, but for rock mediation if needed.
Correct, and it's a steep hillside, so we know we're going to run into some issues that are there. We just don't know what. We just wanted to have that buffer to cover that so I didn't have to come back to council in the middle of the project.
Makes sense.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve an agreement with Simcoe Development Group for construction of a new water transmission main on Lakeview Heights in the amount of $100,240 plus a 40% contingency.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And item 2 passes. Item 3, approval of public transit funding agreement, CityLink North. And Troy Timison's here with us today.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Mayor and council has been a partner in this agreement for a number of years. Back in the year 2000, hard for me to say, the census designated this area as a urbanized area based on our population. At that time, this group came together. It's overseen by Committiee County, and it's quite a partnership. It really does our public transit in our whole county, and we are one of the partners in it. I would say to you, it's been an exceptional value for our constituents, as well as the partnership that exists between the Coeur d'Alene tribe, the cities of Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Hayden, Dalton Gardens, and even Hutter. So it provides a regular fixed route on 3 different routes. They also do a CityLink North, which assists in folks that have troubles getting around with the Americans with Disability Act. And there's a Ring-A-Ride service for seniors that are greater than 65 that would come and pick them up when they're outside the area. So again, this dollar amount is down from years past. We're proposing it's $70,448. Last year, it was about $20,000 north of that. That was a budgetary concern from council, and there's also been good news for this group that they received some federal dollars. So in July of 2020, this service supplied 16,579 rides. And it's amazing what 30 days does and the number of people using it. That is actually down quite a bit from a year ago, but we know that we're in a very unique time. So 16,000 in 1 month. So as your administrator, I feel extremely good about this partnership. Because if we went back another 20 years, we were spending almost this much money in public transit, and it was not providing this many riders, nor was it this expansive. So the value of leveraging the dollars has been really well done. That is what our match does. It's dollars coming in that goes and assists the Federal Transit Administration grant. So it is the cash that comes in that helps them get the federal dollars that makes this whole organization run, because it is a multi-million-dollar organization. So I'm here to entertain any questions you might have on this. It is in your financial plan. We do it on an annual basis, and that would be my presentation.
Any questions?
Madam Chair, Troy, why is it on an annual basis? Why not just like a 5-10-year commitment? Because you're absolutely right how successful the program and how necessary it is. Is it because of our budget process?
Sure.
That's it, simple, I guess. Okay.
Thank you for answering that great question.
Well, I would just say from personal experience, and in my last life dealing with senior population, and we were the one of the kind of go-betweens for the Ring-A-Ride, and our information and assistance folks would hook people up with that service, and that's a very critical service. It's well used, and so yeah, I heartily endorse. And if we're ready for a motion,
I think we are.
I would be
Madam
happy.
Chairman, just one other, Committiee Health is a major participant in this as well, and they don't really receive any direct funding. They would be on the match side because they're out providing van service for those that need. So when I look at a community partnership, I would point right to this and say, this is how we get things done. Sorry to interrupt, but that was just another meaningful partner that.
Well, and just to add on to that, I'm on the parade trail almost every day, walk right by CityLink. There are workers walking from the area apartments these are young people that depend on this transportation to get to them to their place of employment. So it's just been an incredible partnership. I'm glad we're still all in agreement on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Okay, well, I would make a motion to approve a one-year agreement and funding for the city's portion of the public transportation within the urbanized area of Kootenai County, also called the Kootenai County Public Transportation System, City Link North.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 4, we have approval of agreement for professional engineering services with JUB Engineers for the 2020-21 wastewater collection system capital improvement projects. And with us today is Mike Anderson.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you. This is our annual, every year we'll spend, we budget about $700,000 to $750,000. This year it bumped up to $750,000 to repair the collection system underground and various projects that sort of rise to the top of needing to be done. And what I'm asking for now, this is for the engineering for the repair that's going to be scheduled for this year. We have $189,000, of which $50,000 is a management reserve fund, and that's for those ones. It depends how bids come in. What's going to happen at this point is, hopefully this will pass and we'll be able to engineer and design what projects we are looking at getting done this year, which is going to be open trench, which means digging a ditch somewhere. Generally, it's a little bit more money, but unfortunately it's needed in this case. So depending on how those costs come in, we have a management reserve to design and do construction services for the projects. If the bid comes in pretty good, then we'll be able to do more work, and that's kind of what that's mostly there to cover. Once these are designed, we'll put it out. We're planning on having it designed this winter and getting it out for bid this winter. Generally, we can get a little bit better quotes. And then construction will start probably in the springtime since May.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
2 questions.
Yes.
I'm just curious, first of all, JUB Engineers, they're top-notch, they're fantastic, but I'm just curious, did we go to bid to work with them specifically first?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So if I could just expound
Sure.
on that a little bit. In 2018, we put out a general call to engineers and requesting their qualifications and received much input. And we went out to our committee and decided on who it is that, again, sort of rose to the top. So in 2018, we entered into a 10-year agreement with JUB with a year-to-year sort of refresh. So in other words, we're allowed, in this way, we don't have to come forward and say, hey, we really like this engineering firm, we'd like to use them, okay. And then at that point, now that we've agreed to use them, we want to do these projects. Can we use them for these projects, kind of a thing.
Okay.
As long as we're appreciative and they're giving us good service, we'll continue to use JUB for the next, we've got 8 years left on that.
Okay,
If for some reason something happens, as happens in this world, then we have the ability to get out of that and go somewhere else.
perfect. All right, and then my second question is, you say this is something that every year you look at where the greatest need is. So I like planning, and you know the Parks is bringing forward a master plan, and I think probably several other departments are too. Do you have a master plan rather than year to year? Are you working on a master plan?
Do we have a master plan? I'm so excited you asked that.
Oh, boy.
So we have 2. For this, we have a collection system master plan. We actually were due to start that in, I think it was 2018 or maybe even 2019, but we postponed it. We put it off for some information from the Envision Coeur d'Alene. We really wanted to see if we had some idea in the north section, we're really going to zone that R150 or something. I don't know, some crazy zoning. So we really were trying to see where we see the city growing. It helps us on our planning as well. So that's going to be scheduled for this year. We've got money set aside to refresh our collection system master plan this year. So hopefully I'll bring that to you about this time, our new one, so we can kind of show you what it is that we see. Again, this is where we see our city growing, this is where we see our pinch points, and this is where we're going to have issues.
Great.
Have another one coming forward just to plug the wastewater department. That's much closer to being done, and that's for the treatment plant itself. That plan will be coming forth to council probably much faster than the next few months.
Great, thank you.
So as you say, this is a refresh. You've had it in place and they've had the planning process for a long time.
Correct, yeah. So this is working off of our previous collection system master plan, which is probably about 7 or 8 years old at this point. So unfortunately, these are, we're going to be working on our 6-inch pipes, and they're just old pipes that are running down an alley that we can't service. Our 8 inches is our minimum size at these days, so we need to rip those out and put in new pipes.
Good. Well, then I would make a motion to approve an agreement with JUB Engineers for professional engineering services for the 2020-21 wastewater collection system capital improvement projects in the amount of $189,522.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And we have. Oh. The voice from above. Item number 5, vacation of a portion of 4th Street right-of-way adjoining the westerly boundary of lots 9 through 14 at the Sims addition to the city of Coeur d'Alene. And Dennis Grant is here to present.
Good afternoon, council members. Yes, we do have a vacation request up for us. The applicant, Gordon Dobler Engineering, is requesting the vacation of a portion of 4th Street right-of-way that adjoins the westerly boundary of the property on the northeast corner of 4th Street and Poplar Avenue. And shows that up on the exhibit. And the requested right-of-way was originally dedicated to the city of Coeur d'Alene in the Sims Edition plat in 1905, long time ago. The vacation of the requested right-of-way would not have any financial impact on the city and would add approximately 3,000 square feet to the county tax roll. Although a minor amount, it would be a benefit to the municipality as tax revenue and to the landowner whose lot adjoins that strip of usable property. The purpose of this request is to vacate a 10-foot strip, as shown on the exhibit, of 4th Street right-of-way that adjoins the western boundary of the abutting property. 4th Street is developed to its ultimate width in this location, and the additional right-of-way can be incorporated into development of the adjoining property. In addition, the right-of-way width to the north of this property, you can see a little bit of it on the north side of Locust, although it's hard to see on this one, but is prevented from future widening without acquisition of additional right-of-way. Basically, the right-of-way is less than the exhibit shows to the south where the yellow is. There's a 10-foot difference. All utilities are existing and in place, and there is no foreseeable use for the additional right-of-way. The development review team was informed about this vacation. There was some concerns from the Park and Rec Department, and basically for me, I needed to know whether we needed to do a street tree easement. It doesn't sound like that might be an option. So there might be some questions or comments from Bill that you might have. So I'll just read the recommendation, then maybe Bill, you can come up if you, okay. The recommendation would be to the Public Works Committee is to proceed with the vacation process as outlined in Idaho Code 50-1306 and recommends the setting of a public hearing for the item on November 3rd. So a couple council meetings away, we'll have if you guys approve that. So if you want to come up, Bill, and make some comments.
I suppose
This got out a little faster than my Urban Forestry Committee was able to work through all the changes within Mr. Lawrence's design. But we spoke, and it's a bit odd. If we grant the vacation, there's really nothing that holds him to doing what we're asking. But he says to me on the phone that he will do what he's required by the Urban Forestry Committee. He's suggesting he's going to add 6 street trees, and I said, but that's great, and I'll trust you for what you say. So I'm meeting with the Urban Forestry Committee on Friday, but in effort to help Mr. Lawrence through this so it goes to council on the 3rd, we agree with what Dennis is presenting. It's a little backwards. We're agreeing to a vacation before we have some things we'd like to see within that. But again, Mr. Lawrence says that he will do what we are going to ask him to do. So I'm good with what Dennis is presenting today.
Madam Chair? So then, Bill, we'll know by November 3rd.
Yes, and I hope to get all this stuff ironed out, because I don't want to come back to you on November 3rd and say, we have an objection to this.
Okay.
Because that wouldn't help his business, and it really doesn't make us look that good. So I would prefer to we'll have it ready, and it'll be fine for the 3rd.
Okay. So really, all you're asking is to bring it forward for a public hearing, and council can decide at that time.
Right, because I don't want to come forward at that time as a park director and say we don't agree with this.
Sure.
I believe what Mr. Lawrence said to me on the phone is he will be good to what we're asking for.
Okay. Thank you.
So just to clarify, would the 6 new trees be in addition or to replace the removal of those 3?
That's correct, replace the removal of those larger ones, and that's where
And it would spread out along
Yeah.
the frontage?
Right, so he wants to put some on 4th, and then he's going to come back at a later date and do some work on Poplar side. He said he's going to put some more in there. So they're going to be designed to our standards like we developed on 4th Street for those trees. It's deep so that the roots go down and they don't come up and crack sidewalks and that sort of thing. So he's willing to work with us, and I'm willing to work with him.
Good, looks like a game.
Yep.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to proceed with the vacation process outlined in Idaho Code 50-1306 and set a public hearing for November 3rd, 2020.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion passes. Item number 6 is a presentation, wastewater equity presentation, and Mike Anderson is with us again, twice in one day.
I've never presented to General Services, and I'm doing it twice in one day.
Well, welcome.
So thank you. And today it will be a presentation on wastewater rates. So first I wanted to try this out with Public Works to make sure it worked before I really brought it to General Services. So I presented this about 2 months ago to Public Works and thought it'd be nice for everybody to see it. Really the idea is just to kind of enlighten and shed a little clarity on how it is that we get to the rates that we set. So there's 3 steps in the rate setting process. First, we figure out what is our revenue requirement. So by that I mean the operating and the capital expenses. How much money are we going to need? From there, we go to a cost of service analysis. So once we actually find out how much money is needed, where is that money actually being spent? Is it being spent on actually pumping the wastewater, on treating the wastewater, on the $750,000 a year on the collection system of the wastewater? Just the various expenses that go into treating the wastewater. And then from there, we do a rate design analysis. And these are some of the key parameters that we look at and we really try to achieve when we're setting rates. We want to find rates that are easy to understand. It'd be nice to have rates that are easy to administer. We obviously need to consider the customer's ability to pay those rates. We certainly strive for continuity. Can we have rates that agree with any sort of city policies that we have set in place? We want to provide revenue stability to the utility month to month, year to year. We need to make sure we're getting the appropriate amount of money. We like to promote, obviously, efficient allocation of the resource. And then, I don't want to say mostly, but it is probably the most important one, equitable. We want to make sure they're equitable rates and that they're non-discriminatory. So, here's sort of a breakdown. This is from our previous rate study, which is about 3 years old now. And you can see I've broken it up into the different categories, and then commercial and residential. Those are our two big users. So when it comes to volume, it costs the same amount of money to pump 1,000 gallons of commercial as it does residential. Strength is generally costs a little bit more. Commercial is has more pollution in it generally, grease or something like that from your restaurant or what have you. This just costs a little bit more to treat the commercial than it does the residential. Other is for the administration of these rates, mailing out the bills and things like that. So you can see the total costs are $6.59 for commercial per 1,000 gallons to $6.10 for residential. I'm sorry, then the customer costs are the, I apologize, I flubbed that. The customer costs are the administrative costs for the people in City Hall when you call up and say, hey, I want to talk about my bill. So the average total costs to treat 1,000 gallons is actually cheaper for commercial because they're using quite a bit more water. So it costs more to treat 1,000 gallons. They're equal customer costs, but there's far less commercial customers than there are residential. If you look at the bottom, there's only 1,800 number of units for commercial as of this presentation, when the rate study was done, and almost 15,000 residential. But one of the big items that, just to point to here, is the total cost as compared to total revenue. So it was $6.90 per 1,000 gallons to treat, and our analysis showed we were only getting $6.35. So obviously, over the last 5 years, we incorporated a annual rate increase that's due to be completed in 2022. So one of the big problems that we have, everything seems very normal and straightforward, but it's not, because we can't actually measure the flow of wastewater, unfortunately. We use the water meter as our surrogate to determine how much wastewater people are using. This is from January of this year, comparing what I tried to get sort of an apples to apples as best as I could comparison between commercial residents on the left and residential customers on the right. This is about 92%. So this is, I was trying to get rid of outliers. So this is 92% of the commercial in this category, which is 3/4 inch. That's our largest commercial use. 92% would cover use between 0 and 20,000 gallons. On residential, the lion's share was 3/4 inch residential, and there I was able to get 93%, and they're using 0 to 8. What I really wanted to what I'm trying to show here is just the variance that most of the people in commercial are using in January, where there's no irrigation. It's 0 to 20,000 gallons, and in residential, you can see it's a much tighter group. They're really using, everybody kind of uses about the same wastewater, more or less, and that's the best we can do as far as rates. This was the July of this same year, 2020, and I just wanted to show it to you. It doesn't show much other than really, in my opinion, you can pull from it what you want, but I found it interesting that just the usage went up skyrocketing. So in residential, for example, where we were most of the people at 93% were 0 to 8. Now we're using 0 to 35,000 gallons. So really, there's just a ton of irrigation use, as I'm sure the water department could attest. So this drawing, not my finest work, but it's the best I can do with the spaghetti that I was working with. And what I was trying to show was, maybe I can use this pointer to help demonstrate a little bit. There's water, obviously indicated by the blue line, going into the houses, and the brown indicates the wastewater line leaving. And what I was trying to show was most houses are about the same size, but when it comes to commercial, you can have a small little retail shop or a factory or a large retail shop. So we assume residences to be about the same, and as it was indicated in that previous graph you saw in the January 2020, they kind of used about the same, but commercial was very different. So what do we do with commercial, which can vary greatly? We add, oh God, it worked. We add in the option of using irrigation meters. So irrigation meters are an additional water meter that a business can purchase, a service from the water department that we will not charge wastewater rates on. In that way, if you were to trace this blue line here and see it okay, every drop of water that goes in here is going to go to their showers or sinks or toilets or whatever's going on there that's going to end up going down the drain. If it's a commercial, factory, whatever's going to go down the sewer is what we're going to charge them for. And what they're going to spray on their grass with this irrigation meter, we would have charged them wastewater rates. And that's the workaround that we've been able to come up with to try to keep people from paying irrigation fees. Yes?
Madam Chair? Well, that's really to the heart of some of my questions. For instance, I remember receiving just an inquiry from a small hair salon, very small, like one person proprietor. So they don't use very much water. They shampoo, and that's it, and maybe a restroom. But the rates were so high, she almost couldn't afford to continue. So how recent is this that you've made this option, and how far down will it bring their bill?
It all depends on how much they're irrigating. Most commercial businesses have, this is me being fairly general, but if it was someplace downtown, for example, they wouldn't probably be irrigating very much at all. And most of that water bill is probably, let me just assume it's a shop on Sherman, let's say. It would make no sense at all for them to get an irrigation meter because they're not using that for irrigating purposes at all.
Yeah.
All of the waste, all of the what this person would be paying for is going down the drain.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the costs have increased at the wastewater department. Just due to, if you saw previously, we figure it's not like we just kind of, take a swag and say, oh, let's charge $50 a month. We figure out exactly how much it costs to treat it. And unfortunately, the costs to treat have increased since we've had to put in a third stage of treatment. Our requirements to keep our river clean have become much more stringent. But the good news is, at least I think for us locally, it may not help this person who's having a hard time paying for their bill. But it is not quite a bit lower. It's lower than everybody else in our neighborhood. If you were to look at any other city, our wastewater rates are lower than every other city in our surrounding area.
Okay.
But yes, unfortunately, it probably wouldn't help them out as much. It helps out somebody who has a lot of grass. Basically, the problem is people don't want to pay, rightly so, wastewater rates for water that's growing grass.
Right.
So if there wasn't much irrigation, it really wouldn't benefit you much.
Okay. Thank you.
Makes sense.
So, just to sort of summarize a little bit here, these are just some of the key takeaways that I really wanted you to consider going forward, or at least just be aware of in comparing the commercial for the residential. And the reason that we're able to charge residences a flat rate. So commercials can vary significantly, both from customer to customer, that small account as compared to somebody who's got a huge business, and then also season to season. A restaurant is, the same exact restaurant is using a lot less wastewater likely in the wintertime than they are in the summertime when we get troves of tourists coming in. So for that reason, we charge commercial accounts based on every gallon that they use. Every gallon that comes in is a gallon that they get charged wastewater for. Residences, because they're all quite similar in the grand scheme of things, they can be billed at a flat rate. And that flat rate allows us to, that big jump that you saw from January of 0 to 8,000 gallons to July when they used up to 35,000 gallons, most of that's irrigation. It allows us to keep residents from paying for that irrigation.
Madam
So-
Chair? Well, Mike,
Yes.
Then, is it possible, though, for these commercial accounts that are very, very small to have the benefit of a flat rate?
Unfortunately, no, because of that variance. The commercial account that use it can use both. Between this commercial account and that commercial account, they can vary greatly between the two of them, if it's a hair salon or if it's a burger joint.
Yeah.
But also from season to season. So if I said, okay, hair salon, you use this much in the wintertime and this much in the summertime, or excuse me, use this much in the wintertime, I can assume you use that much in the summertime, but I can't because of that seasonal variance.
Okay.
So in an ideal world, every gallon that went through that water meter, you would pay wastewater on, because that would be going down the drain. But in the real world, that's not what happens.
Okay.
It's not like we're trying to get everybody to pay the same flat rate. We're really just trying to get people to pay for what goes down the drain.
Okay. All right.
So in most cities, in fact, are billed the same way we do, where they, as every gallon that you use is charged for wastewater. And then they offer usually an irrigation meter for those businesses that have irrigation. And approximately half the cities or so that we've looked at will bill residences also on straight water use. So if you were to irrigate your grass, you're also going to be paying wastewater rates on that. We have found that there was, in our last study, the actual costs to treat the wastewater as compared to what people were paying, it was about within 5%. So we were actually pretty close. We had to make some pretty serious adjustments previously in the early 2000s because I think it was commercial wasn't paying quite enough. So we had to adjust the rates accordingly. But during our last rate study, we found everybody was paying a little bit too low. But so by increasing everybody's rates, we were able to keep it equitable. That is the end of my presentation. Are there any other questions?
Mike, I just have one, and you may have mentioned it. How often do you do the rate studies?
Approximately every 5 years.
Every 5 years,
There's
okay.
not a set time to do it. We do it as needed. And obviously, when we knew when we were adding this, we had to add this huge extra bit of treatment, it was going to require a rate analysis to make sure that we could afford to pay for it.
Thank you.
But it's about every 5 years.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Great presentation. Thank you. Our final agenda item is a presentation from Terry Pickle, a water superintendent on the water department. Welcome, Terry.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for allowing me to join you this afternoon. I wanted to give you a quick overview. I know it's 44 slides, but we'll go through them fairly quickly. On the water department, just kind of a brief overview of what we do. This is just going to cover it lightly, so I'm open to questions as we go if you'd like. So let me cue it up here.
And council members, feel free to ask Terry any questions that you have as we go along.
Thank you.
So, the Coeur d'Alene Water Department wanted to thank you for allowing us to join you. We have 23 full-time employees, and we do hire up to 6 part-time summertime help. So that's a picture of the crew there. We're missing a couple of those people there now, but we'll be back filling those positions here shortly. And we're down to 1 summer part-time help that's everybody else had to go back to school. So we do get a lot of college kids. We try to look at that talent for our replacement operators in the future, and we try to encourage them to help with their growth. So, the water department's mission: provide tasty and healthful water at a reasonable price, at consistent pressures, and in sufficient quantities. Our major objectives: number 1, excellent customer service. We strive to train our employees to be courteous, respectful, and informative of the public when they're out there dealing with them, so they get the correct answers and that they're satisfied with the service that they get. And we do get a lot of comments back that we do have some very pleasant operators out there that meet with the public on a routine basis. Our ultimate goal is protection of the public health, and that's for every public water system. So we utilize several mandated programs to accomplish that. For water quality, maintenance, cross-connection control, we'll talk about a little bit later, and there's 4 objectives in there anyway to help protect the public health. One of those being clean and safe drinking water. So we maintain all of our facilities in the best working order, try to keep our public water system in good working order, and part of that is reliability. 15 years ago when I came here, there was no backup power for any pump station. We now have 2 major wells in each zone that have backup power. We'll soon have a 3rd one for each, and all of our booster stations have backup power. So we have complete reliability of the system in case we lose power or we have some other calamity that causes the public grid to go down.
I do have a question and it's, kind of a subjective thing about the tasty water, but I would say, and the reason it kind of came to my mind is that I'm part of on a neighborhood, kind of a blog thing that talk up in Coeur d'Alene Place and Landing, and some of the folks just recently talked about all the water in it, and frankly, used to taste good, this and that, and now doesn't. And, I'm a long-time user of Coeur d'Alene water, and it still tastes good to me. But would you have any response, or do we have any feedback? I mean, are there times of the year where it might taste different or something, or what would be your response to that?
It depends on the time of the year and the flow. In the summertime, and we're pushing 32 to 40 million gallons a day. So, water is flowing through our pipes constantly. In the wintertime, it's going to have times it's going to sit there. We do chlorinate for protection, so we make sure that it is very safe. But other people have, different tastes too. Some people could taste chlorine, some people can't. Some people could taste iron, some can't. So there's constituents in there that could affect that, depending how long that water sits.
Okay, thanks.
So. Originally, just to give you a little bit of history, we drew water from the lake. Our oldest water rights dates back to 1903. We originally had 32 cubic feet per second water rights before the adjudication. We could only prove about 13 of those CFS, cubic feet per second. And CFS, or cubic feet per second, is 1 cubic foot per second is equal to about 449 gallons per minute, or about 646,000 gallons per day. So we still have a considerable right if we ever wanted to use the lake water for an emergency or irrigation, so we still have that capacity, and we will maintain that. In 1955, we started converting to utilizing the aquifer. So the first hand-dug well was in 1955, the Locust well. It's still in service, and then the next one was 1966, 4th Street was hand-dug. After that, they went to mechanical means. We switched completely from the lake to the aquifer by 1977. So our screen intake is out of service. The pumps still sit there. We still have power to them if we ever need them, and the lake intakes are still out there. I'm still planning to, here in the near future, utilize an ORV to go out and inspect those intakes. We have 2 of them out there off the 11th Street dock, so we'll see what kind of condition they're in. So we drill wells to get the water from the aquifer. The new wells are always tested for capacity, water quality, and water quantity. We're very fortunate that our aquifer is very prolific and very pristine in water quality. Once they're approved, we build a new pumping station and put that system into service. So the wells pull water from the source and push it into the distribution system and ultimately into storage. And then we utilize booster stations to lift water from one lower elevation to a higher elevation or a higher zone. And we have 4 different zones in the city. We utilize vertical line shaft turbine pumps with high horsepower motors, typically from 250 to 600 horsepower. These are babies compared to some of what Spokane has, but they're large for us. So the booster stations typically use centrifugal type pumps and usually 20 to 50 horsepower and fairly small and easy to work with. Is treatment needed for the aquifer? No. This water is so clean and so pure that it really isn't needed, but we do it because of the size of our system. So we utilize, 10 years ago we started switching from gas chlorine, which is very, very dangerous, to these ultra-safe on-site generators, which create a very low percentage chlorine bleach. We utilize what's called a SCADA system, a supervisory control and data acquisition. And this system communicates with all of the wells, the reservoirs, the booster stations, and various systems throughout the city, as well as the control building. And we can remotely control the wells and the booster stations on site or from a computer. We utilize radio modem communications to talk to each site remotely, so we have to have line of sight. So we put up these radio towers. A little bit hard to see there. We put up a 66-foot tower there at the Ramsey site, and we're going to move that up to our new site here in the next couple weeks. We have 7 storage facilities throughout the city with a capacity of over 8 million gallons. This is the industrial standpipe being constructed. One interesting note on that, the top to that tank was built inside the tank, and it was floated on a cushion of air to the top where they welded it in place. And I have a video that I could show if anybody's ever interested of them pushing that thing to the top. It was very interesting to watch. So, the picture on the right is a view from the top of that tank when they started constructing Hawk's Nest. So, 160 foot tall. We try to use paint schemes to make them as invisible as possible. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work. And this was the most politically correct one I could find. They really get nasty. So the water goes into about 305 miles of water mains ranging from 2-inch to 24-inch in size. We have over 100 miles of the AC pipe still in the ground from 4-inch to 24-inch that we're working to replace, as well as the steel and galvanized. The ductile iron C900 have much longer lifespans, and some of the AC pipes been in the ground for 60 to 70 years. Typically, you figure 50 years on that. The ductile iron pipe, 100 years. So, all new main construction for development is done by contractors. And no, this wasn't a California contractor. This is actually the end of Shattuck Lane. They raised the grade that much when they completed the project. So, all connections to existing mains are done with hot taps here, which means it's done with the water main live. So there's a sealed unit that drills through this wall of this pipe, and well, that main is still in service. So all new taps are done that way. That way we don't take a chance on depressurization or contamination of that main. So. We do routine water quality sampling. These are our sample stations we are putting around the city. We have 47 of them so far, and we do them with new development, and wherever we replace an old service, we'll try to throw one in if we can. It's easier to get samples through these and rather than going through a hose bib on the side of a house, because you never know what they've used it for or what's going on inside that house. These draw directly off the main, so we get the best water quality sample. We install service lines from the water mains to the homes or businesses, and they range in size from 3/4 inch up to 10-inch. We have one 10-inch service over on Blackwell Marina. So, the 1- and 2-inch lines can actually be installed with trenchless technology. We utilize a pneumatic mole to punch them across the street. So we dig a pit on one side and the meter box on the other, and without having to take the street out of service, we can punch that line across. 3-inch and larger need to have open trenches. We did try a 6-inch fire line up here on Northwest Boulevard. They were able to get it across, but we had some difficulty getting it to pass the pressure testing because of a different type of material. So. On those services, we install meter boxes. On the residential units, we utilize the 3/4 inch set up here that you see here with a small meter box. You've probably seen those in your lawns and sidewalks. For the larger, you have to put in a vault, and it has to be below ground, so it takes a major, this is an 8-inch meter here with a 4-inch bypass, and so it's a major undertaking to put those in. We utilize Badger meters to track customer usage. The newest meters can even track leaks, and even if the meter runs backwards for some reason, if there's some overpressure on the customer side. So this is the old register, an old mechanical register. This is the new radio read. This one here, we had stock registers for each size meter. This one here, you can actually program for each meter. So we would stock 1 meter register for all the different sizes. Here's your typical copper setter, meter, and up to the radio read unit. We perform routine meter maintenance to ensure the accuracy of the revenue generation. This is not only just for the water department, but as Mike pointed out, this is critical for wastewater. So we've been upgrading to compound meters on the larger sizes so that they can register clear down to the low flow. These will register down to a quarter gallon per minute, whereas the older meters will only register down to about 3 gallons per minute. So that's a lot of low flow that wastewater was losing as well as us for sewer revenue. We change out about 2,000 meters annually. We have about 20,000 meters total in the system. The radio read batteries have about a 10-year lifespan on those, so that's why we change them out every 8 to 10 years. As you can see here, we have some on hillsides. We have them around various places that are not always easy to locate and easy to change. Some of them can be deep. Typically, they're 18 to 24 inches below ground, but we have some that are 4 feet below ground. So, unfortunately, the meters and the boxes are relatively ugly, so our customers do their very best to hide them. Here is a water meter that's actually encased inside of a wall that they built in the house. We only have about 100 of these left in the basements. We're trying to get those all out of there. This one here, you can't see it very well, but right there is the meter box lid under about 6 inches of bark. So, and we try to be respectful of their landscaping, but we still have to be able to access them. And of course, you see beyond here buried waist deep in a bush there. So, fortunately, our GIS technology, we have shot all of our meter boxes, so we know where they are through the GIS mapping, and we can get to them within 3/4 of an inch. So if we lose one under landscaping, we can find it relatively easy. Occasionally, you have a curious customer that wants to take a peek. And as I said, some of our meter boxes are a little deep, so the guys really have to get into them to change those meters out. We perform fire hydrant maintenance annually, so we hire some part-time people to, we used to have a contractor do it, but now we have part-time people on staff to do it. And so they do about 400 a year in about 5 months. This one here, because they're ugly, the customers like to hide them too, and somebody had painted this one with automotive paint. It's supposed to be this color here, so the crew had to go out and wire brush this thing, get it down to the original coat of paint, and repaint it. Notice the green caps. Anybody have any idea what that is? Okay, that indicates the pressure range of that fire hydrant for the fire department. So when they pull up, they see a green cap, a yellow cap, a red cap. They know what pressure range that fire hydrant is. So they know what they can expect for pressure. If they see something different, they know there's a problem. So, and unfortunately, they get broken. We go through about a couple dozen of these a year, especially in the wintertime. People slide into them, and they're designed to break away in this fashion here, so there's a traffic flange right there. Costs about $125 in parts and about a half hour to an hour in labor to repair it. Unfortunately, sometimes there get a few that are no longer repairable, there's no longer parts for them, so we have to replace them. So we do probably a couple dozen of those a year as well as if we're doing a water main replacement, we'll add fire hydrants where we think they're necessary.
So when that breaks off, apparently that's a shaft going down, so the water's not gonna gurgle up?
Yep, you don't, unless for some reason the car parks on top of that shaft, no. They don't do like in the movies and shoot water up. Even the ones in the warm climates are really designed so they don't do that. That's just a stunt for the movies.
Okay.
Usually this time of year, starting this time of year and moving into the winter, we'll do valve exercising. What that means is running the valves up and down with a hydraulic machine because they get corrosion and stuff on there. And so we go down and exercise those valves, make sure they all still function like they should. We have nearly 12,000 valves in the system, so it takes quite a bit of time. This unit here, I'll go back into it a little bit later. It'll be in a couple more slides, but it has the ability to reach out and remotely do that. It also has a GIS system attached to it that it can actually count the number of turns for that valve, which indicates the size of the valve, the condition, and it gets a GPS coordinate for it too, so it puts it on our map. Cross-connection control is one of those very important programs for protection of the public health. Try to explain that to the customer because it's a cost to them. but it is really critical to help protect the public water system. We'll be looking at various different types of assemblies. We now track over 12,000 assemblies. That's nearly what Spokane tracks. So we've done a very good job on that. Once in a while, you get a little bit of a surprise when you open that box, though. We also do new infrastructure inspections. So when we have these contractors putting in new mains, we're there watching what they do to make sure that they meet our construction standards, as well as we're getting our own GPS coordinates. And thanks to Debbie Frisbee, a lot of hard work from her, we can actually now enter all this data right straight in the field. So we have almost instantaneous updates to our mapping system. So we can also add pictures. So we can get pictures of this and actually add it to the map so you can click on it, look and see what's there underground. You know what you've got. So it's really come a long ways, and we're very fortunate that she's been working with us on that. And Mother Nature likes to lend us a hand every once in a while with a little bit of lightning and torrential rainfall. This is our standpipe. Last year, July 2nd, we took a lightning strike at that tower at Ramsey and fried our control system. So everything went haywire, and there's actually a YouTube video of the water cascading down the outside of that tank. So you can look that up and watch the Prairie Falls there. And with the torrential rainfalls, of course, water leaks just seem to pop up in the streets everywhere. They don't realize it's storm drains overflowing, but we get all the calls. Eventually, unfortunately, infrastructure begins to fail as it ages. So we have leaks throughout the system many times a year. This is a huge problem that's plaguing utilities nationwide, aging infrastructure. And it's not just water, it's not just wastewater, power, everything, streets. So this is going to be an upcoming problem in the future. We try to stay ahead of it. So we try to do 1.5 to 2 miles of replacement every year. The last couple of years, the Yardley piping that we've talked about, Yardley service lines, has given us a little bit of a curveball on that. We've been replacing about 150 to 200 of those services a year, so keeping ahead of the overlay projects. So this one here was down on 11th Street, and this one was over on Blackwell, the 12-inch transmission main that goes across the marina parking lot. Leaks can cause damage and be in difficult locations. This one happened March in 2012. There was a 3-foot section of wooden water main that somebody had forgotten and nobody knew was there, and it blew out that morning and washed out a block of asphalt. Took out the curb. We were holding the power pole. This, fortunately, is just a light pole. We were holding that up. We had to rip out all of that asphalt, replace that main, and replace all the asphalt. And thanks to the street department, they went and cleaned up all the sand that washed clear down into the golf course. We had about 2 inches of sand to wash clear down into a driveway that goes into Jerry Jager's place. This one here, Idaho Water used to put water mains off in easements instead of putting them in the roadways. This is down a 10-foot embankment. We've since replaced it. We had to skid the tractor down there and then pull it back up with chains to get it out of there. We no longer do that. Our crew does infrastructure replacement. This is that same water main where you saw that tractor going down over the bank. We relocated it in the roadway and increased it in size from 4-inch to 12-inch. Our minimum size that we now allow is 8-inch, even though DEQ still allows 6-inch. 6-inch barely meets residential fire flow, so we've increased it to 8-inch. And you never know what you're going to come across. This was a 4-inch water main right here that instead of tapping it directly into that main, they ran these 4 lines over to it. We were wondering what in the world they were thinking. And then we get the imaginative plumbers. This is an irrigation system for an assisted living down on Lincoln Way. And so they built the double check right in off of the meter in the meter box. So a little difficult to get in there and work on it. We don't allow that. We rehab our pumps every 10 years, and so it takes some specialized knowledge and equipment. They're getting to be fewer of these contractors around, so We've only got about 3 or 4 to actually bid on them anymore, if they even bid. Most of them are so busy that they won't even bid, so. We do maintenance of our storage facilities. This is going in and cleaning the Best Hill tank, and so we had to drain the tank. The guys had to suit up and be sprayed down with hypochlorite. Go in there, we scrubbed and washed the bottom of the tank, sprayed it down, flushed it out, retested the tank, put it back in service. We do those about every 5 years. The standpipes, they're so tall that we can't do that physically, so we use an ORV, a robotic vehicle, to go in there and inspect them while they're in service. And they can actually clean them while they're in service as well. They use a vacuum that vacuums them, and they can do camera inspection. It's a really pretty neat process, and I have that on video as well. We do our own fleet modifications. Here's that unit with that valve exercise unit. Our crew actually designed and put this thing together, and this comes off of a truck that has a interchangeable bed system called Switch and Go. We have 5 different bodies that one truck can hook onto, so one truck can do the job of 5 different vehicles. But this unit, they put it together, they designed it. The manufacturer or the supplier of the equipment came along, took some pictures of it, now it's available as a package unit, so, from the manufacturer. So, this is old Big Blue from the wastewater, so we recycled that truck and turned it into a hydro excavator. We replaced the old hose reel on the front with what they call a contractor pack. It has hoses and nozzles to be able to cut the soil. We also converted it into a street washer, so it has nozzles on the front bumper that we can actually wash down the street while we're at it too.
It's an interesting color you chose.
Huh? That's the color, well, that was wastewater's choice. So, that's just the way we got it. So, but it's become one of our key pieces of equipment. It's very nice for digging around utilities because you're not doing it with a shovel or a backhoe. So it's very safe to dig around utilities with. And the guys did a fabulous job outfitting it. So. We train annually. We have to maintain our licenses. We're required to have operator licenses to touch any of the valves or any of the equipment within the city. We must maintain a minimum of 0.6 CEUs for our regular operator licenses. If we have backflow or anything like that, it requires additional training. So we're used to attend regular classes as well as put some on. This one here is the annual service truck rodeo over in Spokane. Here's that piece of equipment again that we're demonstrating for some of the other attendees. And so we get to show off some of our equipment that we build. Here's a fire hydrant class where we had a distributor come in and demonstrate for us as well as neighboring water systems, repairs and maintenance on fire hydrants. Occasionally, we get to show off a little bit. So a contractor like CAT or equipment provider will put on a rodeo, so if we get time, we go and the guys get to show their skills here. Here's one, they're taking volleyballs off of the tops of cones and dumping them in a garbage can, stacking a set of tires. This one, you're actually knocking tennis balls off the top of cones. You couldn't knock the cones down, or that was a penalty, so we had to be careful with that. This one here, if it shows up, was a 100-yard dash backwards with a trailer through a series of these candles, and I actually did it in 32 seconds.
Could never do that. Could never
But one of my guys did it in 25, so had to show me up. So yeah, we get to have a little bit of fun once in a while. A few recent accomplishments. The Best Hill Booster Station, we finished in 2017. When originally bid, it was about $300,000 over budget. So we went in and did the actual piping ourselves and knocked about $275,000 off the subsequent bid. So that's what we saved to get it done. So I'm pretty proud of the guys. They did a fabulous job on it. Unfortunately, because of the time of year we had to get it done, it was in January. So the guys were dealing with snow and frigid weather and did a fabulous job on it. The Hutter well, we just got drilled this spring down to 363 feet. Test pumped at 4,200 GPM, good water quality, and we're in the design phase of the pump house now. Last year we did the Fernand Hill 12-inch transmission main. We took a 12-inch main from the Elm Street booster station over to 23rd Street to replace an old 6-inch main to help stabilize pressures up on Fernand Hill. This summer seemed to help quite a bit. We got very little complaints that we normally get a lot. So that's just the first phase of a 3-phase project that Kyle's been working on there. And the second phase he did this fall, where he converted 4 different mains over to the general zone. And that took, what, 50 houses off of that high zone? And so it's relieving the load on the Stanley Hill booster station, tank. So ultimately, when the 5th phase is done next year, we've got to replace a section of water main. They'll take another 10 or so off that system. So we'll have about 60 homes off of that tank and reduce that load. Of course, we just finished the water facility. We're trying to figure out how to get the council members in there safely to do a grand opening, but this presented a lot of challenges this year, so I'm still trying to figure out a safe way to do it for you folks. So, one thing I wanted to point out, zero debt service for this department. We have not incurred any debt in the past 20 years, and we do not forecast any in the coming 5 years under our current plan. So we're pretty proud of that. That's unheard of in our industry. Upcoming projects, Hutter Well construction. We talked about that one. They're getting ready to construct the Trails transmission main from the new Hutter Well site to the industrial standpipe there at Industrial Park. Working on the design for the Atlas and Centennial Trail transmission main. That's phase 2 of that project. We're currently advertising for pre-qualification of the contractors there. Kyle brought you the Blackwell transmission main. No, we are not forecasting any growth there, or not desiring any growth there. It's a replacement of what's existing with adequate facilities to provide fire flow. So we're not, there's a little bit of growth there that's already guaranteed a right to, but we're not promoting any future growth there. We just want to supply what's there. Canfield and Fernand tank sites. Canfield, we're working on trying to get an agreement with the property owner. We're still searching for the tank site on Fernand, so that's still ongoing. And I just talked about the Elm Street switchover, which Kyle has done a fabulous job on, so I can't thank him enough for that. With that, myself and our former superintendents, thank you for joining us. Unfortunately, Ralph passed away last year, and so we dedicated a well to him. And
Nice.
he'd been with us, you know, between Idaho Water and the city, he'd been since 1968 to 1992. He put a lot of time in there. So the system is based off of what he really started. So thank you.
Thank you. That was fantastic. Any questions?
Yeah, just,
Yep.
well, you know, we all take water for granted.
Yep.
We just go turn on the faucet. We don't know
Exactly.
any of this hard work.
Yeah.
So that was very informative. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for that. You were on my street. Water department was on my street, within probably a year ago. I took some pictures and sent them to Troy because your guys were way down in the ground. I was just amazed by the hard work that was going on. And that was over on the old North Fairway. And then right after that, TDS came through, did fiber. And then this summer, the gas line came through. So my question is, because you kind of alluded to it in one of your slides, that you called, the street department came out and fixed the road. Do you coordinate with them all the time, and are they coming to North Fairway?
We coordinate with them on our projects. They do our paving for us throughout the year on any water main repairs, any water main replacement, up to a certain point. I mean, this Friday, I think there's a cutoff date for them because they got to start switching over. But are they coming over there? I think they're working on plans for chip seal. I'm not sure.
That was what I was wondering.
I
and
believe
can
that's what
ask
they're
them.
working
I
on.
just didn't know, is that a coordinated effort when you go through a neighborhood? Do they look at chip
Yes,
sealing?
we try to work with them and we're hoping to get a 5-year plan. Usually it's about 2 years. We try to be a year ahead of them if we can. Because we don't want to, I mean, the chip seal, they don't worry about us cutting, but it looks ugly to me. I don't want to do that. So we're trying to be proactive and get ahead of those, and any overlays, we make sure that we get in there and get ahead of it, replace the mains, replace services, whatever we need to do.
That's interesting. Well, no, you're doing a wonderful job, and our street did have that old bubbling of water. And it's, and our water tastes great, and so like I said, I do feel like I take it for advantage watching your presentation. So please tell everybody how much we appreciate the hard work.
Thank you.
Well, thank you to
Thank you.
both Mike and Terry for the great presentations. And there being no further business and the completion of all 7 of our items, this meeting is adjourned.
Great, okay.